Thank you for listening to this episode, and follow the podcast on social media by finding @Prestigious_pod. And if you'd like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life, you can reach out to me, Chris Beane, at Chris Beane Official, or by emailing the podcast directly at prestigiousInitiative@gmail.com. Lastly, sign up for our newsletter either through social media or on our website. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Beane. Today I'm thrilled to welcome a true visionary in the world of audio marketing and storytelling, Elzie Flenard. Elzie, welcome to the show.
I am super excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Excellent. So, Elzie, tell me a little bit about you and kind of what brought you with us today.
So I'll give you the 2-minute version. I know we don't have too much time here, but I'm an audio guy. I started off singing at the age of 5. And I've been a singer-songwriter since. Started doing some rap, some hip-hop, started speaking, and then eventually fell into the world of podcasting, almost on accident. And so been kind of stuck with me ever since. I fell in love with the ability to hear people's story and to connect with them on a personal level, and to, quite frankly, to help them promote their business and whatever it is that they have going on. So I'm an audio guy that loves to connect with folks, via podcasting and speaking, and anything that involves a microphone in my mouth, and a stage and lights. That's my happy place.
Wonderful. Yeah, and podcasting, before I started the podcast, I had an idea of what podcasting was like, and it's way different than what I thought it was going to be. I'll tell you, the really interesting and amazing thing is I get an opportunity to meet with guests like yourself and so many of other guests that I've met with so far, and I get to create like a college course that is designed to how to be a better version of whatever it is that I want to be. And I get to take the listeners kind of along for the ride there. And the extra impressive and amazing thing about this is I get an opportunity to ask these people really, really kind of some tough questions sometimes. And they do such an awesome job answering them. And is all for the benefit of helping to learn, to helping to share that education with anybody who's listening. But again, I get the double benefit of asking the questions along with learning.
Oh yeah. That's honestly my favorite part about this podcast world is you learn so much, both from your guests and from just doing the research and figuring out who might be a good guest for the podcast and what question can you ask, and it's just a fantastic way to grow and learn. So I'm a lifer. I'll be 95 years old still podcasting. We probably won't use headphones or microphones at that point, but I'll be the old guy that still is just bury me with my microphone and my headphones. I'm a lifer. I love it.
Very good. Now, Elzie, you started your journey in a small town in Southern Illinois, and then now you're a leading figure in the podcasting industry, which is truly inspiring. I'm wondering, can you share with our listeners a bit about your background and what inspired your pursuit into entrepreneurship and audio marketing?
Well, there were 2 things, Chris, that I knew when I was 13 years old that I wanted. One was a family, because I didn't feel like I had the one I deserved growing up. The second thing I knew I wanted was to own my own business. So I've always known that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know how, because I didn't know any entrepreneurs. Everybody I knew, they worked for somebody else. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so my plan was to, go to college, get a job, get married, have some kids. And as soon as I could quit my day job and do my business full time, that's what I was going to do. The problem with that plan, Chris, is I didn't really understand business, and I didn't understand how to run it effectively. And so that's actually how I got introduced to podcasting. It is because I figured that if I would interview these people, these business owners, then I could learn business. I could learn how to make that transition over. And so that's how I got into the podcast space. I think for me, the thing that drives me and motivates me in terms of podcasting is understanding the power of the medium. It's not slowing down. Podcasting is here to stay, and it will be effectively the way that you market and promote and grow your business from here to the future, right? And so as an entrepreneur, we have to understand this medium, how to leverage it, how to use it, and how to, use it to grow our business. And so that's what wakes me up, because I kind of get the both of both worlds. It's I get to help entrepreneurs grow, and I get to learn, and I get to teach. And so that's my mantra, is to live, learn, and teach.
So, what was it about entrepreneurship that kind of drew you there? You mentioned that was something you wanted early on. Was it just the the lack of a superior to report to, the you had to create your own hours? What was it about that drew you in?
I don't fit.
Hmm.
I don't fit in the box.
Yeah.
I think differently. I operate differently. I'm just different. I don't being rigid in the way that corporate is. I just don't fit. And I want to own my own destiny. I don't want somebody else to decide how much I can make, or when I can come to work, or I needed that freedom, that flexibility, and the ability to chart my own path. I was always a good employee, just because I'm a high performer. So if you tell me your goal is X, then I'm like, okay, let's get it done. But always in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, how do I apply these lessons to when it's my turn to be the guy, and how do I learn what not to do, from whatever environment I'm in? I guess I was just born that way. Some people, learn that they don't like corporate over time. I've always known. I've never had a job that I liked. One job that I could deal with. Every other job, and I've had a lot of jobs, Chris, is like, when is the end date on this thing? When can I quit and do my own thing? So I've always been this way.
And I'm going to imagine that school for you was also tough, because it seems like entrepreneurs, the way that they go through grade school and even college is different than everybody else, because they, a lot of times, and maybe this wasn't you, but a lot of times as entrepreneurs that we think of as great entrepreneurs, they drop out of school because they couldn't fit inside that box for any longer than what they already were, and they had to break out and go and do their own thing. So, did you experience school in that same kind of regard?
Not really. Like
Mm.
like I said, I was always good because I understood what I wanted.
Uh,
So even when I was studying electronics, for example, I knew that this learning about electronics, electrical engineering, is going to benefit me as an entrepreneur one day, right? I'm going to probably own some kind of automation or electrical engineering company at some point, right? Now I have the education to do that. So my mind was always thinking, like, how can this benefit my business ownership or my entrepreneurial journey? So that made it easier for me to excel, because I knew, okay, I may not be an electrical engineer forever. I did it for about 10 years, but now I have a solid foundation, on when I go to buy that engineering company. I know what it is to be an electrical engineer, because I understand the business. So that's the way my brain works. Even today, some of the things that I do, it's always to that end. Is how do I add tools to my tool belt, so that when the time comes and the opportunity presents itself, I can leverage those learnings to increase or improve my business acumen. So that made it easier, but I struggled doing it for a long period of time. Like, if I had to take a course and it was calculus, it was like, okay, well, how does this how does this really, like, how is this going to help me? So things like that. But for the most part, I was able to kind of shift my mindset to leverage everything that I was doing to add tools to my tool belt.
And even from a young age, it seems that you were driven by that goal of having that entrepreneurship, and you were able to overlay all of the hard work, even through school, that you had to go through into, hey, this is going to benefit me when I do this, or I have to do this in order to get over there. And you could see that roadmap, and you were willing to walk down that road in order to make it to that side, because you wanted to be at that other side.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think that was the thing that really made the difference. I think had I not had that mindset, I would have been like the other entrepreneurs that you mentioned,
Sure.
like Do I really have to finish high school? I mean, I know what I want to do, but I think
Mhm.
again, having that mindset really allowed me to do what I needed to do. I wasn't, a 4.7 student, but I wasn't a D student either. I did enough to get, to make mom proud and not have to come, talk to the principal. But again, I think it was that mindset that really helped me a lot.
Yeah. Now, Elzie, you emphasize the importance of connections in your work. How has building authentic relationships through compelling stories and audio marketing transformed your business? And I guess maybe what let's let the listeners know what is your business, and then you can go into that question.
Yeah, so my business is Podcast Town. And basically, what we do is we help entrepreneurs build, engage, and monetize their audience effectively. Um, to your question, I think connection is everything. People want to know that you see them, that you hear them, and that you understand what it's like to be them, right? That you can empathize. Um, Transactional business just doesn't work anymore. In 2024 and beyond, people will do business with people they know, like, and trust. I call it the KLT factor. Um, if people know you and don't like you, they're not going to buy from you. If they know you and like you and don't trust you, they are also not going to buy from you. So connection is everything. It's the connective tissue that's going to take people on that journey from knowing who you are to trusting you enough to buy your product or service. So I think above and beyond any business implications, relationships are everything. I just spoke at a small business owners conference. That was because of relationships. I did a keynote in my hometown. That was because of relationships. Like most of the things that I've been able to do in life and in my career have been because of relationships. I mean, relationships are literally everything.
And really, that authenticity is so important because in this day and age, either we're really bad actors or people really can see through that. But when you fake that authenticity, if you fake the real, like you can't really bring yourself to really care about whatever it is that you're sharing. It's a facade. It's fake. We can tell it's not real. And whatever then your message is really crumbles and falls down so fast because I don't want to listen to that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just faking it for right now. And that especially that overlaid with relationships. Like if you're up trying to sell something to somebody, okay, that's one thing. But if you're faking relationship status in order to get something on the other end, that really tries to break that down as well because you have to build those relationships so that it is mutually beneficial and in a realistic authentic type of way. You can't fake those type of things. You want to build that relationship with those people to have the connection with them. Maybe it'll lead to something else on the other end, or maybe you have something for them, but that doesn't matter. That real conversation, that real connection, that relationship that you have with your people, that is really important.
Yeah, yeah. And I think conversely, if you do it wrong, the damage is long lasting
Mm,
and it's almost impossible to come back from. So trust is really, really hard to build, really, really easy to break. So
yes.
it's a delicate balance. And to your point, especially podcasters, like we can sniff it out from a mile away. Like we know when somebody's not being, genuine in who they are. So that's why I love hanging around podcasters because we don't let each other pull the wool over each other's eyes and we can, like you said, we can sense it a mile away.
Now, I'm curious with your business. You talked about having business owners, um, into the podcasting world to help build those connections. I know that having a podcast does wonderful things to building those connections and establishing yourself as a person of significance in whatever area it is. And so I guess. And maybe you can go into a little bit of depth in this, but probably I'm seeing two kind of avenues of approach where you have business owners that are on as guests, and then you have business owners on and they develop their own podcast, and maybe it's a once a month type of thing just because they have so many other things, but that way they can do it. Okay, let's see what the guesting is like. Okay, I kind of like this. Okay, let's do my own show, and then that probably I'm imagining builds them as a source of inspiration or whatever it is in the market that they want to jump into.
For sure. I always tell folks, I recommend you do both. Both have their benefits and drawbacks. For example, being a guest is amazing because you get to borrow that KLT that we just talked about.
Hmm.
You don't have to build it. It's already there. You just show up, you give as much value as possible, and you get to, take advantage of that. But as a guest, you don't necessarily get to craft the conversation or curate the conversation. You don't control the timing when it comes out and the clips and all the different things that come along with it. But as a host, you get to control the narrative, you get to control the conversation, you shape the questions, you get to decide who comes on and who doesn't, the format of the show. Maybe it's a solo show because you want to show people how brilliant you are. And so you get a little bit more creative control. The reason I suggest you do both is because you get the both the best worlds. You can borrow the audience and build your audience, and now you have a well-rounded approach to building your KLT and your audience.
Yeah, and I think that it is probably tough for business owners to want to jump out in this type of realm. I think that we understand this and the benefit that it gives, but I can imagine that probably some business owners are, let's say, stingy with their time and don't want to dedicate time for this. If you're a business owner, if you're listening to this and you are thinking about jumping into on a podcast as a guest or starting your own podcast, I can tell you it is wildly beneficial. Definitely do it. And if that means you do it wrong for, however long until you connect with someone, you fake it till you make it. Okay, fine, do that. I'm sure at some point in your business you had to do that anyways. Let this be another avenue of approach that you can share with the people, whether that be your current clients and customers or future clients and customers. You can help to build that connection now just by starting. And it doesn't have to be amazing, it doesn't have to be perfect, but put something out, put something together and just do it. And then have that return on investment and be real, be honest and genuine as you go through that avenue as well. Yeah. Now, Elzie, you started this early career in front of the microphone in the lights as a rapper, navigating challenges now as an entrepreneur. You've encountered, I'm sure, your fair share of obstacles. How have those early experiences, or even the experiences that you have now, helped to shape your approach to business and personal growth?
That's a great question. I think for me, the biggest thing that has shaped me, and I don't think this is unique to me, it hasn't been the successes as much as the failures that have really taught me who I am as a human, who I am as an entrepreneur. I'll share a quick story. I had a minor league basketball team at one point, and this was around the time where the NBA was on
And you were the owner of the team?
I was the owner of the
Okay,
team.
okay.
And it was when I tell you I learned so much about business because you had to think about the sponsorships, the partnerships, the ticket sales, merchandise. Then there was how much do we charge? Are we going to get in trouble? With the NBA because they're not playing, but are they going to feel like we're infringing on them by starting this team? So there was a lot of considerations that caused me to really think about, from a business perspective, how to roll this out and how are we going to be successful. Long story short, we were not successful, obviously because it's no longer around. But that failure, and quite public failure, really taught me a lot about the game of business. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you could have the perfect timing, right? There's no basketball anywhere. We should have succeeded. There was no basketball, but we didn't, right? So it taught me, okay, you just because the timing's right, you still have to have the other ingredients. Like, does the market know about you, right? Or how did we promote so folks knew that they could come see us? And so all of those types of lessons are the things that help me, quote unquote, grow up as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. How do you pick yourself up after something like that, right? I had to take a year and a half off because mentally, financially, emotionally, I was wrecked. How do you restart? How do you reset? How do you pick yourself up and say, okay, that didn't work, but let's try something else and do it a different way. So it really taught me a lot about, business, myself, my personal mastery, right? How do you identify those things, those triggers, and still get enough sleep, even when you're broke and you don't know how you're going to pay your mortgage the next month. Like, how do you still show up for your wife and your children and all the other places and spaces that you have to show up despite what's going on in your business? And so that experience really set the trajectory of me really understanding who I was and my personal mastery journey.
Well, it's really interesting too because a lot of times we think, I don't want to jump outside my comfort zone, and I share this often so listeners will know, but this might be new to you. I think of the comfort zone as your warm bed on a cold morning. That alarm goes off. It gives you an opportunity to get up and do something. I'm gonna hit the snooze. I'm gonna stay inside my comfort zone. The problem is if you stay inside that comfort zone and you lay in bed all day, you don't do anything. You don't win. You don't succeed. You don't fail. You don't grow. Nothing happens. So you have to get up, embrace whatever the challenge is of even turning the alarm off and get up out of bed, but to face whatever the challenge is in front of you. And you did that. You stepped outside your comfort zone. And oftentimes when we step outside that comfort zone, inevitably we're going to fail. In fact, failure is a part of that. We have to fail in order so that we can succeed later on. And just because we fail at that one thing doesn't mean that we are a failure. As Zig Ziglar says, failure is an event, not a person. Just because you failed today just because you failed yesterday doesn't mean you're going to fail today. Yesterday ended. Today's a brand new day. Move on, right? Use that opportunity to learn and grow. Just because you think you might fail at something doesn't mean, you know what, this might not go the way I want it to go. I'm not going to do it. Okay, but it also could go the way that you want it to go, so you have to do it. And even though it fails, you learn so much that you can carry into whatever area it is in your life that you can build and move on with. Without that failure, you wouldn't be where you are today.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
for sure.
those failures are so essential. I'm sure anybody listening to this, you can look back at your life, think about the successes and how short of time those things lasted. And then think about the failures and the opportunities that you had because of those failures. Think about the failures and opportunities you had to learn things, firsthand experience on how and why that failure happened so that you can learn and grow and not allow that to happen next time. The problem is, I think in today's society, we put this all through a mask of I failed, I'm never going to do this again, I can't do this, I can't do that. And just because they failed one time at something doesn't mean, they see that as, I'm a failure, I can't do this. But that's not where we're at. Just think that as an opportunity to say, you know what, it didn't work this time. What can I do next time so that failure doesn't happen again? What did I learn from this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you got to make sure you grab the lesson for sure.
Yes. Now, Elzie, you tell me a little bit about your podcast, Journey to Mastery. I looked. You have what, over 400 some odd episodes? Yeah.
So last Saturday, I recorded the 500th episode. So
Wow.
I think it comes out November 18th ish.
Wow.
It'll be at 500.
Well,
So uh,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It's been a journey,
Uh,
which is why I rebranded it a little while back. It used to be called Enterprise Now, but I really felt strong that I wanted two things. I wanted to build a media brand around the podcast as opposed to just being a podcast, and I also wanted to reposition it to promote and make myself the key focus of the podcast. Um, Selfishly, over the years, I've always done interviews, and so when I do an interview, my number one job is to make the guests look amazing and brilliant and fantastic. But I found that sometimes I got lost in the shuffle. It's like, well, the guest people are coming for the guest, and so I wanted to do this trial, this test on solo episodes, and actually the downloads and the engagement has gone up, right? Because I want people to connect directly with me and on my journey to mastery, because I'm going to be sharing a lot about my brand, my personal brand, things that are happening in my life and in my business. And so a much more personal approach to the podcast. And so shifted the name to Journey to Mastery a little while back, and really enjoying it so far and looking forward to, where it goes in the future.
So with 500 episodes, how long have you been recording the podcast for?
2016. So it's been over
Wow.
8 years.
Wow. Hey everyone, it's Chris Beane here from the Prestigious Initiative. If you're looking to level up your life and unlock your full potential, I've got some exciting news for you. My recent guest, Joel Gandara, has an incredible program called 31 Days to Become a Better Man. Joel has packed years of life-changing insights into this easy-to-read book, guaranteed to help you rethink your shortcomings and redefine what it means to be a man in today's world. But that's not all. Joel also offers powerful one-on-one sessions and group classes to guide you on your journey. And he has a special offer for the Prestigious Initiative listeners. You can get $19.99 off the program when you use code PRESTIGIOUS at checkout. Don't wait. Take your first steps towards becoming the best version of yourself today. Visit 31dailychallenges.com and use the code PRESTIGIOUS for your discount. And now back to the show. Now, okay, so let's see. This is going to be episode 102, I think. So I'm a little bit further back than you compared to 500, and so I'll give you a peek behind the curtain. This is my let's say second or third, depending on how you count. My day job, actually, it's more of a night job, evening job. I'm a professional martial arts instructor, so that's my day job. I started martial arts when I was 11. I got a work permit from school when I was 14. I started helping to teach the class. Now I am second to the owner. I run and manage the school. I'm the operator, I guess. I write the lesson plans. I teach the classes. I lead the extra teaching staff. I lead and manage the office personnel, set protocols. The whole. In fact, if and when the owner comes in. And teaches at the school that I'm at, he follows the lesson plan that I created. And anyway, so that's my day job. My first podcast was essentially how to do that job, and I did about 57 episodes of that. And that was I knew that me and my co-host, was another instructor of mine, knew that was going to be a limited run type of thing. And then we had all the gear. We said, well, you don't might as well just do this. So that's where the Prestigious Initiative came from. And then I have a daily show that I do. It's called Champion Minutes with Chris Beane. That's me, by the way, where I share just real quick, between a minute, sometimes it's only 35 seconds, up to about 7 minutes of daily kind of self-help information. And I do that every day. I haven't missed since like mid-November last year. So that means on Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and Christmas and every day in between. Yes, even today, because everybody always asks. Yes, even today. So I've done a handful of audio, a handful of podcast things. I'm wondering, what are some insights after doing 500? I'm not close to 500. What are some insights that you have gained now, things that you're doing now that you wish you would have been doing early on? And this selfishly is for me, but also for anybody else who's listening.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I think
okay, here, let me condense the question. If you could think back to your early self, what would you tell yourself to help to give yourself a boost early on that you wish you had?
Yeah, so for me, the biggest thing, so remember when I started, my only goal was to meet business owners. That's it. I didn't understand anything about format. I didn't understand anything about marketing, sales, strategy, planning. I didn't know anything. I knew audio because I was and I knew how to use an audio board and connect it to my computer. And so there I was. I would have been more studious and diligent about learning the nuances of the tech. And it's come a long way since 2016 in terms of, video and audio, but I would have done even more research on the tech and how to set everything up. I would have been much more strategic about my plan, the specific questions that I was going to ask, and the outcomes that I wanted to get as a result of those questions, right? Because the questions you ask, in this chat GPT world, will dictate the outcome or the answers that you get. If you ask a bad question, you're probably going to get a bad answer, and it's probably not going to lead to the outcome that you intended. So I would have done much more research on how to ask the right questions at the right time to the right people, and really done more research on the guest. Again, my barber, I knew he owned a business. He was cutting my hair one day, and I said, "Hey, barber, want to be on my podcast?" He's like, "What's a podcast?" Sure, I'll be on it. So just being more prepared and strategic about things. What is my sales process? I didn't have a sales process. I wasn't selling anything. Didn't know that I needed to sell anything. So things like that, just being very much more well-rounded in my approach to treating it as a business. Because again, when I launched mine, it was just because I wanted to have conversations with business people. So if you're listening, watching this today, just be really strategic and intentional about structuring your podcast as a business division if you're a business owner, or if you're not a business owner, treating it like a business and being and really paying attention to those details, because that's a shortcut, right? That's a key to success. Because if you have that on day one, by the time you get to 100 episodes, you'll be further than you could have even imagined.
Well, thank you for that. And Elzie, of course, we talked about family a little bit here. Family seems to be a significant role in your life, and of course, in your work as well. How do you balance the entrepreneurial suits with being a husband and being a father? And then, I guess on top of that, how does your family influence your mission and purpose? In all the things that you do.
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. I don't like to call it balance. I think of it more like harmony. So I'm just drawing on my singer songwriter here. So you think about a song, right? And you think about singers in a song. You don't want the music to be louder than the lead singer, because that kind of defeats the purpose of having a lead singer if you can't hear them. And then you have the background vocals, and you have the alto, soprano, and the tenor. You don't want the tenor, which is usually the lower part of the melody, you don't or the harmony. You don't want them to be the loudest part. They have to be balanced, and they have to be harmonious. So if I'm singing in a different key than they are, it's going to sound terrible. We could be balanced, same level, but if it's not harmonious, then it still sounds bad, right? So I like to think of it as the balance, right? The lead singer is singing more, right, than the background, but they're supposed to, so it's balanced. If that analogy makes
Yes,
sense.
yes, yes.
But it's in harmony, because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and it blends and it sounds beautiful, and the drums are keeping everybody on rhythm, and the bass is going, the keys, and everybody is balanced and harmonious. So that's the way I look at it, right? So when I'm the lead singer, I'm at work, that's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm doing. When I'm at home, I'm in the background at home, right? Because it's about them, it's not about me. And so my role is a little bit different. And so there's the balance and the harmony. So that's how I approach it, right? I mean, I spend 8 hours to 8 hours, but the 3 hours that I spend in the background or as the background singer, right, is it weighs just as much, and it creates the harmonies. And so that's the way I approach it. And so, right, when you think about different projects and things like that, you never want to have the lead singer and the backup singers singing necessarily at the same time. Certain parts of the song is for the lead singer, certain parts of the song is for the background. Certain parts is just for the band. Sometimes you just gotta, point the attention to the drummer and let them do their thing. And so I think it's a matter of understanding seasons, assignments, and where you are in that season, which is why self mastery is so important. Because if you don't know the triggers, if you don't know the things that, okay, man, last week I worked way too much because I woke up and I felt drained. I shouldn't wake up feeling drained. Or I didn't eat lunch this week. So once you know yourself better, you can start to identify when things are not in harmony. So that's the way I approach it, and that's the way I think about it.
So, okay, so understand your role and then set your intentions for that role and make sure that your values are really at the base of all of that. Set your values, I guess would be the first thing. Know your values, have concrete values, and then your roles are important for where you are, and then your intention to whatever it is that you're looking to get out of that role that you're in that specific moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And two, I would say you really. I'll give you an example. I don't do more than 2 evening events a week.
Hmm.
Period. Doesn't matter what it is. If I have 2 evening events booked and the opportunity comes up to do another one, it's an easy question. It's like, no, either I have to cancel one or I don't do it.
Hmm.
It's simple, right? And that's just the way that it is. So I think having those boundaries and those non-negotiables built into your work and into your life really helps, because I don't need to make more decisions a day. I make enough decisions. Like it's an easy answer. It's like, no, I can't do it. It either has to be on a different week or I have to move something else around. So I think it's important to your point to have your values and stick and hold yourself to them.
Yes. Now, okay, I guess I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because you spoke about mastery in there just a little bit, and I know that your journey to mastery. That's your podcast. So can you tell me what is self mastery to you? What is the definition that you're going on for that?
Yeah, it's quite simply the journey of becoming who you are in that season.
Mm.
And what's cool about it is you never arrive. So you're always becoming. And that's the piece that keeps you humble. It's the piece that keeps you learning, and it's the piece that keeps you growing. So my simple definition is the journey to becoming who you are in that season.
And I really like both the concept of your show, the journey to mastery, and then that definition linked with that. I think are really important because that forces the people who are listening, or the people who are striving to achieve that mastery for themselves, not to really compare themselves to outward people, but only to themselves. And of course, if you are comparing yourself to somebody else, you will always fall short, because of course, especially if you're comparing yourself to the version of themselves that they put up on whatever social media that you're seeing them on, because that is not the real version of them. Right? That is that they are striving to reach that person, that vision of themselves. They're not there yet. Let alone us. We're on a completely different journey than they are, and everybody's on their own journey. So if we can turn that self-mastery inward and master ourselves and become the best version of ourselves in whatever season it is that we're in, that is such a wonderful way to go about and kind of shift the mindset about what self-mastery is. And I think that in my realm that I'm in the martial arts, mastery is kind of a normal type of word. But in the outside world, in the business world, mastery is not something that they talk about anymore. Back in the day, you would be a master craftsman, or you would be, a master bricklayer, or whatever it is. But those things I mean, I guess they still have those things, but you're not that in a corporate world. You're not a master CEO. You're not mastering the art of CEO. Right? Those things are missing now. So I think that journey to mastery, and then again with that overlaid with that definition, what a wonderful way to again shift that from the outward to the inward, which is where I think we can do the most work at.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing that it helps us do is again, it helps us to stay humble and
Mm.
to stay hungry and
Yes.
to stay in a mindset of growth and learning and giving and sharing. And so I hesitated sometimes to call the book self, because I thought that sometimes people might misconstrue that as being selfish, but actually focusing on mastering you is the most selfless thing you can do, because if you do it right, you'll begin to show up as the best version of yourself in all the spaces that you show up, which actually will create the most selfless version of yourself. And so it's a pretty cool concept, and I'm excited to continue the journey from the book and through the podcast, and helping entrepreneurs really identify with that journey within themselves as well.
Now, in today's digital age, when we talked about authenticity already a little bit, but authenticity again is key to building that successful brand. I think you've done a wonderful job at this yourself, and I think that I got two questions for you. First question is, how do you define your values is the first question, because that's a prerequisite for the second one. And then the second one is, how do you stay true to yourself and your values while also resonating with your audience along the way?
So I define my values. I'm a man of faith, and so every value that I get comes from God's word, right? When you think about loving God with all of your heart, mind, body, and soul, and loving your neighbor as you love yourself, that alone sets the foundation for all of my values. It's like, okay, that person that just cut me off in traffic, maybe they're having a bad day, but ultimately I get to control my level of happy. Like I could choose to get angry and give them sign language, or I can choose to just be grateful that we didn't run into each other and go on about my day and focus on the next thing, right? So I think that as a foundation literally dictates everything else. How I stay true to it is I hold myself accountable. I have what I call a joy meter. And when my joy meter dips below a 7 or an 8, I start to pay attention. I start asking questions. Why? Why is my joy meter dipping? Was it because of the person? Was it because of what happened? Was it because of some internal junk? Like what was the initiation or the genesis of this joy deficit? And then I start asking, okay, once I identify it, how do I either shift it, get rid of it, or move it out of the way? Or should I bring it to the table, analyze it further, and base my next decision off of that? And so that's how I kind of keep myself in alignment when I feel myself shifting, or maybe it's internal, maybe it's not. But just being honest with myself, and a lot of times that's scary because we're human and humans are messy. Sometimes you have thoughts that you're like, where did that come from? Right. Or sometimes you do something or you respond in a way you're like, well, Elzie, where did that come from? Like this poor kid is just working at the checkout counter at Chick-fil-A. And you're just, so really checking ourselves and being honest. That's how I keep keep a level set on that. And also just really leaning on my tribe. My tribe will tell me like, Elzie, you were wrong in that situation, or Elzie, actually, you might want to make sure that Chris is the right person to hang out with. So just really having a tribe that can keep me accountable.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that having those people in your life that will tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, and at the time that you need to hear it, is so important. And to all those people that are out there that are doing that, I know sometimes you get a bad rap because we don't always want to listen to you in those moments. But thank you. Thank you for being and playing that part for us. Because if you don't do it, nobody else will. And it's clear that that's the case, because otherwise people will just tell you what you want to hear until whatever happens and it shifts the other way. And you're like, oh man, I'm so glad you did that. Well, why didn't you tell me when I was in the moment so I could have done this earlier? Well, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Okay, but sometimes you have to. I think that's a difference between being nice and being kind. Being
Mhm.
nice, you are just along for the ride. You are the yes man. You don't want to say no. You don't want to have the tough conversations because you don't want to keep that relationship right where it is. Being kind means that you are able to say no. You're able to have that kind of tough debate sometimes because it is important for that other person, for them to be the best version of themselves. And without that, they just are on whatever journey it is, and perhaps sometimes for a tougher ride than what they should be. It's like sometimes you can't see the prescription when you're inside the bottle, but everybody else can. And we need those people that will tell us. And having that tribe, like you talked about, that is wildly important. So congratulations for having those people in your life.
Yeah, yeah, they're amazing.
Yes. Now, your values. I really like that your values are founded in faith, and I think that if more people could have their values on something so concrete and so beneficial, then we would be in a much different society than we are now. And it is refreshing to know that there are people out there that still hold true to those core values like that. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about legacy. You've had over five, okay, not over. You will soon, I'm sure, have over 500 episodes for your podcast. Through that time, through that energy that you've invested in that, what legacy do you hope to leave with that audio marketing entrepreneurship? And then on top of that, how do you measure the success of that enterprise beyond the financial achievements?
Oof. Great questions. So for me, again, the legacy is in the relationships, right? So when I have that guest that was on the show once, and she was telling me how she loved to travel, and one of her things is most people who travel, like travel, they have a way that they travel. And so I asked her once, so what is your methodology? And she said, well, anytime I travel, I like to get fluffy, colorful socks. So I said, okay. And so after the interview, I went to Amazon and I bought her some fluffy, colorful socks. She'll probably remember that. That's the legacy, right? Changing the way that people interact, and adding those what I call joy moments to their lives, and adding to their lives as a podcast host. That's the legacy. You're right. I mean, sure, the success on the financial side happens, but for me, it's the relationships. For somebody to say, well, I remember when I went on Elzie's show and the experience was awesome. He seemed to really, enjoy my journey, and he helped me in some way. So for me, that's the legacy, is just being the best connector and the best driver of connection that I could be.
And
Um,
I think that speaks again to your values and then you living out your values as well.
Yeah. And in terms of, I think the second part of that question was the future of the show or podcasting.
Yeah, like the legacy, and then how do you measure the success of the show?
So the success that changes over time. Again, when I first started, it was just how many business owners can I talk to? It was like check. As it grew, it's like, okay, well, how do I monetize this thing? And that's how Podcast Time was born, right? And I'm serving, entrepreneurs by helping them start shows. Now it's more of how do I position myself as a guide to entrepreneurs on their journey to mastery, right? How do I play my role, not even necessarily as a coach, but just as a guide to kind of put up guardrails and say, okay, well, here's what you said you wanted. Um, are you getting there? If not, then have you thought about maybe talking to Chris about it, or have you thought about this resource, or just kind of helping them guide them along their journey. So I think that's my next step in terms of legacy and what I want to contribute to the entrepreneurial space.
Now, if we have listeners that are looking to be an entrepreneur, looking to embark on their own journey of self-discovery, what advice would you offer to them?
So selfishly, I'm going to say, get my book if I could do that, because it's a really good foundation. We have what we call Elzieisms in there. The first one is knowing your genesis and being comfortable with it, even though it's hard. So for me, that was like dealing with the fact that my dad has never come to any of my basketball games. I've never gotten to really dealing with that, because that stuff shows up as adults. It shows up in how you lead. It shows up in how you work. It shows up in how you relate to people. And a lot of people don't want to do that work. They don't want to deal with the trauma and the things that are causing their mind state and their mindset and their internal triggers to manifest. They don't want to deal with it. So that was step number one. You got to deal with that junk, because junk doesn't go away unless you clean it up, sell it, get rid of it, or trade it in for something, right? So dealing with the junk, being open to being shaped, right? If I had to tell my younger entrepreneur self anything, I would say get a coach. As soon as humanly possible, the coach that you can afford, get a coach. So being open to being shaped, right? getting that coaching, that guide, that mentor, the trainer, the consultant, knowing what those different aspects bring, right? A consultant is going to be different than a coach. A trainer is going to be different than a guide. So understanding the differences and, allowing those different people to pour into you. And then thirdly, I would say, you to be an entrepreneur, you have to have this crazy, almost unwavering belief that what you're doing is going to work, because the numbers say that it probably won't. But you have to believe that despite what the numbers say, the stats, that whatever it is that you're doing is going to work. And I think if you have those three things, then you'll be fine. It'll still be hard. There'll still be peaks. There'll still be valleys. But those are the three things. I think if you have those things in order, you'll be fine.
Well, Elzie, I got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, hearing your incredible insights, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. Your inspiring is able to, push us through whatever those tough things are that we have going on in business and in life. And if my listeners wanted to get into contact with you, where could they go to do that?
The easiest way right now is just LinkedIn. There's not too many Elzie Flenards on LinkedIn. So if you just type in my name, ELZIE FLENARD, I should pop right up and let's connect.
Wonderful. And listeners, until next time, keep striving for greatness. This is Chris Beane signing off.